Hi, welcome to Partially Plastic. I'm with Alex today, and she's going to tell her cosmetic surgery story journey.
Hello, everybody. So I started looking into cosmetic surgery in around 2020 because I know cosmetic surgery and plastic surgery has always been a thing, but it's gotten more popular in the higher BMI communities now. And so I started kind of looking into it because I was seeing some before and afters of some ladies who were higher BMI, and they looked really good. So I kind of wanted to see what my options were. And I started a Facebook search and just looking and searching out what I could find. I ended up going to Mexico for a procedure. I initially had wanted a tummy tuck, but the doctor's assistant, messaged me on Facebook and recommended this mega lipo procedure. And I asked some questions about it because I'm like, is that going to make my stomach flat though? Because, the things that I've seen so far, I would need a tummy tuck in order to achieve, the flat stomach that I'm wanting. And they assured me that it would, as long as I wore really tight compression for 3 months.
Did they share before and after pictures with you of other people who've had this procedure who were a similar body type?
They did. And, she had a bigger stomach, and like mine was, and her stomach was flat. And I was so new to things back then, as far as, I don't know, I would say I was a little naive. So I wasn't really hip to the fact that photos can be photoshopped, that they can be edited, how to notice, because sometimes they can be edited really well to where if you're not trained, you're not going to notice that. And so that was something that they presented to me, was a photo that I thought was a real one. But when I went down there, I got this. I decided to trust them, trust their word, and I got the procedure that they suggested. And I remember waking up and I just felt really dizzy, really nauseous, and I was shaking, which I've never done that before, waking up from anything. Like I had a sleeve in the past, and anesthesia never did that to me before. I was shaking. And
how long after your sleeve did you have this procedure done?
Yes.
How long after?
Oh, about 6 years.
Okay, so a good amount of time. Okay.
Yeah, a good amount of time. I did research to make sure that I got my hemoglobin up, because I usually run around 11 for hemoglobin, which is on the lower end. It's not technically anemic to most people, but it's on the lower end. So I did what I needed to do to get my hemoglobin up. I went to my primary care doctor and had my levels tested myself, just to make sure that I was ready for this mega lipo procedure. And so I went down there, I got the procedure. When I woke up, I was shaking, and I had baby diapers taped all over my body. They left the lipo holes open, and so they taped these baby diapers all over my lipo holes. And I bled through those. I was draining a lot, and I bled all on my sheets, and they were soaked, and I slept overnight in them. And the next day I asked if I could have some new sheets, because they were cold and wet and soaked in blood. And that's when they told me that I could leave. They didn't want to give me new sheets, I guess.
This is where the conflict started, right? When you asked for new sheets?
Not even necessarily, because I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't have the strength. Like, I'm just like, okay, let's go ahead and, like, I had to just muster up the strength to walk out of there and get in the car and get across the border, because that's where my hotel was back in Texas.
What part of Mexico were you in?
Matamoros, Mexico. It's just a few minutes across the border.
Okay.
And I just felt more comfortable like staying in Texas for my hotel. So I went back to the hotel and I couldn't get out of bed. I was very nauseous. Every time I stood up, I had to sit back down just to catch my, and even taking showers were really, really hard. I had to have somebody there like helping me because I couldn't stand up, and I didn't have a shower chair in that hotel to like sit down. So I was in bed, and I spent the next 6 days just in bed trying to get some strength back, trying to drink some fluids. I did have a couple massages. I had more lined up, but the lady didn't show up. She was already paid, and it was what it was. But I finally was able to fly back home on that 7th day, and so I did. And again, like walking through the airports, it was sitting and taking a lot of breaks. Like we made sure to get there early so that I could sit down and get my bearings about me and get back up.
How long was your flight to go home?
It was 2 flights. So because there wasn't a direct one from Nebraska down there. But they were only about 45 minutes to an hour each. And I did swell up. I wore my compression, but I was still, even on that 7th day, really, really swollen after those flights. And I got home and I still wasn't feeling good. So the next day I decided to go to my primary care. She knows me, she went ahead and tested my levels. And my hemoglobin was down to 7, which, she was like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and send you to the emergency room because you need a blood transfusion. And when I got to the emergency room, they tested me again and it had dropped to 6. So it was still dropping. And I think it's just because they leave the lipo holes open. So you're draining and draining and draining.
Drains?
No drains.
No drains. Okay.
So I got my blood transfusion, and as I'm at home, healing, I made a post in the group for this particular surgery place and this doctor. And I just said, girls, really make sure that you have your hemoglobin up. Make sure, that they test your levels. Ask them to test your levels before you leave, even, so that it could be an easier process for you if you're going through something like this. And
great advice.
So then I was blocked.
Yeah.
I was blocked. They removed that.
From the group you were blocked?
Yeah.
This is a Facebook group?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they blocked me. They removed what I said. And then the owner of the coordination company got in my inbox and said, the doctor made me remove you. We don't like irresponsible patients. And I was like, I'm not understanding what do you mean? And she said, you never came back to Mexico for your post-op care like you were supposed to. And you didn't do what the doctor told you to do. And so I responded, and I'm like, well, I was in communication with the doctor's assistant the whole time that I was in the hotel. I let him know that I was weak, and they only wanted me to come back over to get drained some more. They wanted to push more fluid out of me because that's what they do down there. They push it out of your lipo holes. And I told him, like, I don't have the strength to get back in the car, go back over the border. I have a lady that's coming to do massages and get what she can get out. And he was like, okay, that's fine. There was never any back and forth between me and the doctor's assistant. So it was kind of shocking that now this coordinator, the owner of the coordinator business, was in my inbox, and she was like, yeah, the doctor doesn't like irresponsible idiots. And then she called me a CUNT. And I'm like, why are you calling me names? Like, this is insane to me. Like, I just spent over $9,000 with you guys. And I literally didn't post anything, against you or the doctors. I was just telling girls, like, make sure your hemoglobin is up. And so she started sending voice messages like, it's not our responsibility to babysit you. It's not our fault. You're anemic and, just so I blocked her because I'm like, I'm trying to heal. Like, I don't have time for this. And so then she started texting my phone because I had to fill out that information when I first got my quote and everything. And so she started texting my phone and she was telling me next time I should probably get brain surgery. And so I blocked her again and I'm like, you know what? Like, I just need to focus on healing right now. And so that's what I did. But I decided to make a page of my own, like a blog page, just to share my experience, like as it happened, especially after she sent those text messages to me, because I was like, this is crazy that somebody who you spent money with and trusted would treat you like this, especially out of nowhere. And so I made my blog page. I shared my experience. I shared the screenshots of the conversation, just so people could be aware. And it got bigger and bigger because so many people then had the chance to come forward and share their experience, whether, they were blocked because they asked a question that they didn't like. They were blocked. And their deposit was just forfeited. They don't get it back. There were people who were really badly botched. They lost nipples, holes in their stomachs, really bad lipo burns. And it caused me to like further research, which I should have done in the first place. I quickly learned that you can't just trust people. You can't take them for their word. You can't just trust pictures online. To get a cosmetic surgery, you really have to do a lot of research, and you should, because it's your life that you're putting in someone else's hands. So I went on and I learned how to check these doctors' credentials in the website. It's all in Spanish and I don't speak Spanish, and that was a big reason why, and that is a big reason why many people use these coordinators, because they speak English and Spanish, so they can, translate and be the in-between. But anytime anybody had a complication or an issue, they would be blocked by those coordinators, and then they would say that we're just coordinators. We just set up the surgery. That's all we do. After that, it's on you. It's between you and the doctor. But the thing is, there's not a communication there because the doctors only speak Spanish. A lot of us only speak English. And so we were relying on these coordinators to be the in-between to communicate for us.
Are the coordinators in Mexico or are they in the United States?
They're in the United States. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we fully understand that they're not the doctors and they're not the ones performing the surgeries, but they are the go-between. I mean, I requested that the doctor, I wanted a video call with the doctor before my surgery. Like, I wanted him to lay eyes on me. I wanted him to see me. And they don't normally do that. They see you the day of your surgery to mark you up. And so I was able to get on like a video call with him, but the service kept freezing up. Like, we really didn't, and he only spoke Spanish. So we really didn't get to have a real communication. And that to me now is a red flag in itself, because if a doctor can't lay eyes on you just to see, how you look, because who's to say that the pictures that we send in even go across this doctor's desk? I mean, the way that they give quotes so quickly, it kind of just seems like, the doctor never sees you until the day of surgery. And I do believe this because a lot of girls have gone down there and they pay for, a BBL, lipo, this and that. And then once they get there, they get operated on. The doctor's like, well, we couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. Your blood pressure was too high. But they don't get any money back. Like whatever they paid for, they don't get anything back if they don't get a BBL or if they had to stop in the middle of lipo because the blood pressure was too high or they were bleeding too much. And there's really no aftercare afterwards. So I just learned that these kind of things are things that people should look for and should be able to ask questions about and should be able to, discuss in groups and amongst each other before making such a big decision. And so my group, it's not a group, it's a blog page, but my page has picked up a lot of traction. A lot of people have watched it. A lot of people have shared their experiences. Some wish to remain anonymous because the owner of this company, she has made, a lot of fake pages, and she has girls working for her as coordinators. So they do engage in bully style tactics when girls are trying to share their experiences in the other surgery groups. It's a lot of blaming the patient's BMI, saying, you need to have realistic expectations, which I do agree. Realistic expectations are important, but I also feel like it's up to the doctor to help make sure that the patient knows what realistic expectations look like, because they're the doctor and they should know what they can and can't do for your body in one round. But my blog page has been mass reported. Lots of pages have come to argue. The owner has made several posts about me. When I first made the page, she said that I was stalking her. She said that I was having people send messages to say that they're going to harm her, which wasn't true.
Did you ever do that? Did you ever send messages?
No. Matter of fact, I blocked any page that comes that is talking crap or that I knew was her. I just blocked. And I did that for the longest time. And so she even made posts on her social media sites offering a free mini lipo if you go to report my page. Free services to people who would come and report my page in an attempt to get it shut down. She's called the police on me about 5 times now, making false reports.
What happened when that happens? What is the outcome of that? Did the police show up at your house or?
No, the police usually give me a call because she's in the state next to me. Like, it's about an hour away. So they'll give me a call and let me know, she's called. Like this last time she called, she said that an Instagram page wrote her saying, "Oh, Alex hired us to harm you and your family." And they wrote that to her. And so they were like, it's a serious threat. And I'm like, yeah, I completely understand. Do what you got to do, because I know I didn't, I wouldn't do anything crazy like that. And so they said they were going to track the IPs, and I kept up with the detective on it, because I'm like, yeah, like where are we going with this? What's going on? I sent him all the screenshots that I have, because I have a huge database of screenshots of things that were posted about me, said online, in different groups. And so he basically let me know that, he told her she can't keep making false reports, or she could get in trouble for that. And so I haven't had any issues with, the police reaching out to me again. But she still does try to, discredit me and my experience. She says that she reacts to people when they're disrespectful to her because she's human. Like this is her reaction when people are disrespectful. But like I said, I asked several times when she first started saying that, please show the proof where I was disrespectful to you. Please post the screenshots where I was disrespectful, and deserved to be called names, because I wasn't. And the only thing I said to her when she was calling me names that day was, that's really unprofessional, because it is, and if you took that as disrespect, then that, but it still doesn't warrant her saying the things that she does. She talks about people's kids. She's talked about my kid because he's in a wheelchair. She's posted it online. It's just a lot of really unprofessional things coming from her, and
which I think can be a great lesson for anybody who's considering having surgery somewhere, is to go to the person's page and just see how they talk about their patients. Are they saying negative things about them? Because nobody should ever say anything negative about a patient, even if they're wrong. They shouldn't say anything negative. They just shouldn't respond, in my opinion.
Right. And you would think, especially being the owner of a coordinator business, you would feel like you had too much to lose to, go at it with patients online. But nevertheless, it still continues. She still has, harassed people and called them racial slurs. And, a lot of girls end up having to block her the same way, because she will get in their inbox if they did share their experience and talk a bunch of crap to them. So, and then I found out that the doctors that she says are certified, they're not. I learned how to look in that database and kind of translate as I go, because it is in Spanish. But I looked them up, and they're not board certified plastic surgeons. And I think maybe she does a little, she plays with the words a little bit, because she'll say they are board certified doctors instead of board certified plastic surgeons. So that's just another thing to look out for too. And I try to share things on my page about how to research and how to look these doctors up to make sure that they have the proper credentials to be performing these surgeries, because it's evident that the ones that are there now don't. And you can tell by the results. And, there's been times where you can tell there's been multiple people working on somebody just by the cuts and by the way that they suture, their different techniques, and you can just tell there's probably been multiple people working on that person. So, and that's a little scary too, because you don't know who's actually working on you.
Absolutely. It's a huge trust position to be under anesthesia and have somebody else working on you. So you definitely want the person who you've contracted with to be the person working on you.
Right. And down there, they give you, they call it like a twilight sedation, but it's an epidural in your back and an IV. So it's not like up here in the States.
So you're not completely, it's not general anesthesia. You're not knocked out.
I was completely knocked out. And I was completely like white when I came to. So I knew that I had lost a lot of blood. but I wasn't awake, and I don't think most people are awake, but they don't call it general anesthesia. They call it like a twilight sedation. Versus up here, like I eventually had my tummy tuck because I didn't get the results that they said I was gonna get. Um, and so I eventually had my tummy tuck up here in the States with a doctor that works on high BMI people. And upon further research,
did you like the results from that surgery?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and it was just such a complete 360 from my experience in Mexico. It was lots of follow up.
Who was your physician in the United States that you used?
Dr. Ross Bunch.
Okay. What state is he?
He's in Alabama.
Okay. And did you travel to go to him?
Yes, I traveled.
How did you pick him?
So I did a lot of research. This time I talked to patients that went to him. I did a virtual consultation with him since he was far away, but I got to talk to him on video. I got to show him my body, talk about, what I wanted to achieve. He let me know, what was doable in one round and what would need to be done in another round. I've actually had a couple of rounds with him now. I had a breast lift, and I had an extended tummy tuck with him. So super happy though with those results and the follow-up and his bedside manner. Everything was just so refreshing from having that
difference, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, from having that horrible first round. So, and I'm not saying that going out of the country you'll have a horrible experience, but I am saying that you really need to do your research and make sure that you're going to somebody who's properly qualified to do the surgery, because the follow-up is going to be hard for you unless you can go back and forth to the Dominican Republic or back and forth to Mexico if some complications arise, because they don't always arise in the first couple weeks. Sometimes it's later on down the road. So those are just things to think about, because I know a lot of girls that have been botched or had complications that come back and no surgeon wants to touch them here. They don't want to put their work on top of that. So it's just something to think about. I know that I seen that there was like somebody who sells insurance for these type of things. I seen them post in the group the other day, but I just wonder like what the stipulations of that would be. Like, do they have to be a board certified plastic surgeon in order to get insurance? And what doctors would work on you here if you needed them to? Because a lot of girls have been turned away. I mean, you can get wound care here. They'll put you on a wound vac or they'll take care of wounds, but as far as like fixing complications, or fixing how you look if things go wrong, they're not willing to. So
that's great advice. It's very, very difficult to find somebody who wants to take on another physician's patient, and it's good to kind of have a backup plan if you do decide to travel of, okay, well, what will I do if this happens?
Right. Yeah, super important. And I mean, I would just suggest doing a lot of research in the groups, talking to actual patients. And I know that there are times when these coordinators, they have extra pages and they pretend to be patients and they'll show you the Photoshop results. So there's just things that you have to be mindful about. If you can video chat people and have them show you their body and their results, I think that's a great idea. But still, it's not 100% foolproof either. Like you still have to give a certain amount of trust to these people. So you want to make sure that they're people that, you can trust in the first place. I think a lot of people have money to make and they're going to do what they have to do in order to make that money. And that's why, I mean, that's a big thing about my page as well. I don't make any money off my page. I don't recommend, like, I always tell people, like, just do a lot of research. I don't personally recommend, I can't recommend any doctor that I haven't actually been on their table. So I will recommend Dr. Bunch because I know him and his team, and I will recommend him to hire BMI dolls. But he does everyone, not just hire BMI dolls. But this particular place that I went to in Mexico targets high BMI dolls because it was not a real thing here in the States. Like, it just recently started to be a thing in the States to work on higher BMI dolls. And, you know, weight loss patients, they still sometimes have higher BMIs. They have a lot of loose skin that weighs a lot. And so a lot of doctors at one time were not taking them. But now here in the States, it's becoming more of a normal thing. Like, as long as you're healthy and you have good labs and you have any health issues under control, there's more doctors here in the States that are willing to work on you with a higher BMI. So those ladies that are searching, I definitely always recommend Dr. Bunch because he did an amazing job.
When you had complications, did your insurance cover your hospital stay?
When I had complications, my insurance did cover like my emergency room visit and my doctor's visit, thankfully. But I know a lot of ladies that I've talked to who've had to be on wound vacs and who've had infections and had to be in the hospital. They don't cover it because they had a cosmetic surgery. And so they're not willing to cover it. I know, like, here in the States, when I got my surgery with Dr. Bunch, he includes a like cosmetic surgery insurance with every patient. So if you have complications or if anything arises, it's covered by this special insurance for cosmetic surgery.
I love that. That means that he's looking ahead at, hey, you know, there could be an outcome that isn't what we're going for. So I really like that he does that. That's awesome.
Right. And, you know, like, I know that complications can happen to people, regardless of how good the doctor is or how good he's not. It just depends on people's bodies and how they heal and how their post-op care is. But I think that the biggest issue with this place is they don't allow anybody to share any of those complications, any of those experiences, if it's not completely positive and singing their praises. They don't allow it to be discussed in these groups. And
going
these are
going forward, considering cosmetic surgery with somebody and you were in their group, if you didn't see anything at all negative, would you consider that a red flag?
I would, definitely.
I agree.
Because, you know, it doesn't matter how good of a doctor you are. Complications do happen. They do. And it doesn't mean they're the doctor's fault. But, you know, wounds open. There's different things that just happen to people, and they should be able to talk about them so that it's not so scary when somebody is going through it and they're looking in the group and they see nothing about it. They, you know, it's just, it doesn't seem like a good business practice to even not allow that to be discussed. To me, it seems like, you know, it's very wanting to hide things that, you know, if it wasn't so common, if these weren't so common and happening every other day, I don't see what the problem is about sharing them. And if they are that common, then something else is going on at the doctors. Like, things aren't sterile, things aren't, you know, being properly cleaned before a patient is operated on, or the doctor just doesn't quite know what they're doing. So that's been my experience, just talking with the different girls, and hearing their stories and sharing their stories, because I do share them and allow them to remain anonymous so that they don't get harassed. Sometimes they still get harassed because these people know exactly who this is going through this. They know what patients went down there and had this or that done. And a lot of times the patient will try to reach out to them first to see, like, what do I do? And so, they're blocked, and then they come to my page and they share their story. And I just do what I can do to get the word out there and try to save anybody the trouble, because it's really hard to get a surgery and be just completely disappointed and still have to heal through that, knowing that this is not what I wanted, but you still have to heal. You still have to feel the pain. You still have to go through it. And then to add being bullied online to that it's not a good mixture, and it can really mess with people's mental health. I've seen it. It does it. And so I just do what I can to save people from even having to go through it. And if they don't want to listen, at least I know I did what I could to share my experience and share other people's experience, because there are still people who don't want to listen. They offer really good, cheap prices for cosmetic procedures that you'd never get in the States. So some people want to roll the dice. They want to see if they're that one person that doesn't have any problems, doesn't have any issues, and get the results that they wanted. So
the scary part about that is if you're looking for cheap surgery, then chances are you don't have money for a revision.
Right.
And if you don't have money to revise it and you get a botched surgery, you're stuck like that, and nobody is going to take care of you. Nobody's going to help you out. So looking for cheap surgery is not always, it's never a good option.
Right. Yeah. If it's the price tag that's motivating you, I just can't stress enough how much it could cost you in the long run.
Absolutely. It ends up being more expensive in the long run when you have to. My insurance, when I had a complication, did not pay for my hospital visit, which was $30,000. So it ends up costing so much more in the long run. It's better just to save and do it the right way. Make sure you have money for the right aftercare. Make sure you have a plan in place if something goes wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially going out of the country. Like I said, I'm not saying that there's bad doctors out of the country, but I am saying that we live far enough away that you really have to plan for anything, because it can happen. It can happen to anyone. You can be super healthy, you could still get a complication.
And the reason why surgery is less expensive in other countries is because they don't have the same requirements that we have here for their physicians, for licensing, for sanitation, all that. All their requirements are a lot more lax. So that's why it is cheaper in other places. And, like you, I'm not saying that you can't have a great outcome going out of the country. It's just very, very important to do your research. And a lot of research can be done just by Googling the doctor's name and the facility. As soon as I Googled the facility that Alex has been talking about, immediately her blog popped up. So it's not always like that. Sometimes you got to really search. A lot of places they'll use SEO techniques and they'll kind of bury any kind of bad review or anything like that. So you do have to really, really dig. But at this time, for this particular facility, all you have to do is Google it and you will see her page pop up.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people, just do your research, please.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to share with people before we go?
I don't think so. Just encouraging people to do their research and, not believing everything that you see.
Thank you so much for being here. Because of what you're doing, there's about 10 other people right now who I'm talking to about this same facility. And hopefully they'll be able to come on the show as a guest and get to tell their story also. If you're curious about what the facility is, there'll be a link to Alex's blog page in there, and you can go on there and you can see all of her documentation, her screenshots, and all that.
Yes, that'll be awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.